Nimrod, Minnesota. But before we go there, I want to wish everyone a happy Earth Day. Today is National Earth Day. And we are celebrating by taking you to this ranch where every day is Earth Day. They told us yesterday, our ranchers. So they are excited to host us. So Miles and Sarah Kuschel, and we're just waiting for a few more people to join us. So hang tight, Sarah and Miles. But a few notes to those of you joining us this morning. We are really excited for your questions, and we want to be able to answer most of those from our ranchers. So please use the Q&A feature to put those questions in there, and I will ask as many as I can. Also, like I said, it's Earth Day, so please pay attention to how natural resources, soil, water, air, all of those great things are utilized on this ranch and how they're also trying to take care and conserve those. One note for teachers, Carrie Seidel, who is also an education specialist with Minnesota Agriculture in the Classroom, is our tech person. So she's going to be sharing some links in the chat with some lesson plans and resources that are connected to our virtual field trip today. So watch for those. One more quick thing, our Ag Mag series is free, and we have Ag Mags for every grade level K through 6. So I'm showing the Ag Mag 5 because it has a special feature on beef, which we're going to learn more about today. And Sarah Kuschel, one of our ranchers, at Rocking K Ranch, is a curriculum specialist who can help us learn all about those things. So I'll touch more on that later, but let's go to Nimrod, Minnesota, and let's meet Sarah and Miles.
How are you guys doing today? We're so excited to have everyone here. And it is Earth Day, so it's really exciting. And it's kind of different because it's about 36 degrees out and raining. So when we talk about how we conserve the soil and the water and the land, when the rain and the land mix together in soil, we get mud today. So it's actually probably better that you're in your classroom where it's nice and warm, but we're still going to get you a great tour. We're going to go inside the barn and check things out. So it is calving season here on the ranch. And we calve in the spring. There's some ranches that calve spring, fall, and whatever works for each ranch is a little different. So we're going to go inside in our barn and check things out where things are nice and dry.
As we're going inside, Sarah or Miles, I'm sorry, do you want to tell us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, so we're a 3rd generation ranch, and we're raising the 4th generation ranch. So I'm going to give a shout out to Sabika School, who's on the call today, because our kids who normally are here helping on the ranch are at school. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go down. So this is our calving barn. And the 4 generations. So my grandpa started it back in World War II. And then continued on. He had 3 boys and 1 daughter, my dad being the youngest, and he was raised here. And then myself is here, and then Sarah's joined us. And you can see the picture on there. We're kind of nervous on how tall Rowan's going to get. As you can see, the height keeps kind of growing as the generations get farther along. So we're pretty excited to have the 4th generation on the ranch. So this is our calving barn. And what you can see here is we have it set up with some pens. So we'll typically bring a cow that's going to calf in here, down the alleyway, and then we'll put her in a pen. It's kind of like in the hospital when the mothers have the maternity wards. This is the exact same thing. So we give them a nice, comfortable, dry place to have their calves, especially when it's raining outside, like you can see here. So we have 2 heifers that calved. So the interesting thing about a heifer is this is her very first calf. So this is her first time being a mom. So heifers are a little interesting because they don't know always what to do. So it's really good to be able to have them out in the out of the elements inside the barn here. So we have 2 different ones. The first one you've seen was a purebred black Angus cow, and you can see by her she's all black. And this next one that's in pen 4 here, she is a Hereford cross. So the bull to her was a Hereford, and those are the red and white ones. If you are familiar with when you're driving out in the countryside and you see some red and white cattle, those are typically Herefords. And then the cow was a black Angus, much like the one in pen 3. So then that does a lot of things for us. When you crossbreed, you get what's called a heterozygous trait. And that helps with things like they're just better adapted to the weather in Minnesota. They do better on grazing. So there's a lot of things that those heterozygous crosses provide us. So that's probably something you'll learn further on in high school. So what we do is that you notice.
Hey, Miles, can I interrupt just for a second? So we have a question. You used 3
You
different
bet.
terms for these cattle that we're curious. What is the difference between, you said a cow, a heifer, and then a bull? So tell us what is the difference between those 3 animals?
Okay, so to make it real simple, the bull is the daddy, the cow is the mom, and the heifer is, just think of it as a that's gonna be a cow. So she's coming up with her first time having a calf. So that's when they go from a heifer after they have their first calf, then they become a cow.
Thanks, Miles. And there's a bit of
questions.
Thanks. There's been a few more classes that have joined us, and just to remind everyone, you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom or the comment section in YouTube to ask questions. Miles is really good at answering questions, so feel free to put those in at any time. All right, take it away, Miles. Back to you.
And if you see, the heifer has a green tag in her ear, and we already have a calf tag made up for this calf. So what we do is, you'll see her number is 207. So we're going to give that calf the same tag, color, and number, so that when they're out in the pasture with all the other cows and calves, we know who belongs to who. The cow knows who belongs to who, but we as ranchers and that, it's pretty tricky when you get a couple hundred cows and calves together. They're all running around playing, having a good time. So this way we can keep track of who is who. So when we sort out for moving to different pastures, that way we can get mom and baby together. I'm sure there's some more questions already.
Yeah, there are. So one student wants to know, actually it's Caitlin, is wondering why you wanted to work with cattle.
That's a great question. Working with cattle is a lot of fun. So you're always outdoors. Of course, on a day like today, that makes it a little more challenging, but it's really nice being outdoors. We work with horses a lot. We get to work with some machinery, but cattle, I've kind of grown up doing it. So it was always a passion of mine. I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, so.
Awesome. Okay, another question. This is from Parker Funk. Parker wants to know, how many cows and calves do you have on your ranch?
Hey, Parker. So on our ranch, between my dad and me, we have about 500 cows and calves. So that's what we're working with right now. The drought and grass will change that, so that number fluctuates.
Great. Okay, I have 2 more questions. Quick, Rafi wants to know, what do these cows help us produce?
Oh, very good question. So, and I'm sure a lot of you out there will know the answer to this, but we just had a very good point come across an email. A lot of younger students think that hamburger comes from ham, but I know you out there out on the other side know that hamburger comes from beef. So originally it came from Hamburg, Germany, where they ground beef up and made cheeseburgers and hot dishes and everything like that. So that's where the name hamburger comes from. So that's a little tidbit. So beef cattle provide us beef. So you get everything from steaks, the hamburger, roast, and then there's a lot of different byproducts that come from beef. When you talk about marshmallows, everybody loves marshmallows. That comes from beef. You talk about medical supplies, there's a lot of medical supplies that come from beef too. And there's even some different components that go into making electric vehicles comes from beef. Fun facts.
Yeah, those are super fun.
I know there's some more questions out there, but as we transition from the cattle side of things, we'll talk a little bit about the feed side of things.
Perfect. So we'll do one more question and then let's talk about feed. So Jackson is wondering if you have any other animals on your farm besides the cattle.
We do. We have a lot of cows. We have 8 horses, and we also have a lot of wildlife. So not only do we provide a lot of habitat for our cows, but we also coexist with a lot of wildlife. We have fox and rabbits and owls and eagles and bears, and we even have a few wolves. And we also lots of different wildlife.
Okay, before we get into the feed, one last thing, Miles, there's lots of questions about the calf. So I don't know if you're Sarah, who I know is doing the camera, if she can get a close-up on one of those calves. And if you could just tell us a little bit about how old they are, how much they might weigh, just some fun facts about those calves. People are wondering.
Okay. So this guy here was born last night. So he's right about 12 hours old. So they get really up and moving really fast. So this little guy here, he probably only weighs about 75 pounds. So, which seems like a lot, but for a cow that weighs 1,200 pounds, 75-pound calf is pretty small. So that's a perfect size for a little heifer.
All right, awesome. Okay, we might have to go back to some more calf questions, but let's go on and talk about, I know you wanted to talk about what you feed them, and I think we wanted to start with a video. Is now a good time for that?
Yeah, if you want to switch over to that video and I can kind of talk about what's going on. So the real big thing in Minnesota about having cattle is you have to be able to feed them through the winter time because the grass doesn't always grow, which some of you are probably thankful for, so you don't have to mow lawn all year round. But we need to make sure that we're baling hay and then we're feeding it to our cattle all winter to sustain them through the winter. So what you'll see in this video here is actually our baler. So we've already cut the hay down with a mower, and then we've raked it together with the big rake. And when we talk about generations, my daughter actually did all the raking for this. So now I'm tying the bale, putting twine around it so that bale will hold together. And then in a few seconds here, you'll see me kick the bale out, and that'll produce a big round bale. So I'm sure as you're driving through the countryside, you've seen hundreds of these big round bales out there. So this is how it's done. So, and it's getting ready. It takes about 27 seconds to tie a bale. So you can tell I spend a lot of time all summer long inside this tractor with this baler, making between 3,000 and 4,000 round bales to get our cows through the winter, all winter long. So there we go. We've just kicked out a bale. So now we'll start up and we'll do it all over again. And I do it all summer long. So
I think you mentioned this, Miles, but in case they missed it, and this is a question from Mitchell Malone. He wants to know, how many bales do you make each year?
Okay, yeah, about between 3,000 and 4,000 bales is what we need to get the cows through the winter. So it does take quite a bit of time. So we usually start baling in June and we get done in September. So that is typically all summer long. I'm in the tractor making hay. So they have that old adage, I'm sure you've heard it, make hay while the sun shines. And if the sun is shining, you can guarantee that's where I am. So now that you've seen that bale being made, what we do then is we have a grinder come in and he grinds all this hay up into nice 4 to 6 inch long strips. And so then we take this hay and then we mix it with some silage. So silage, this is just corn, the big corn fields that is ground up into just little pieces. It goes through what is like a big shredder or like a tree chopper. If you've ever had a tree crew come in your yard and grind up, it's much like that, and it grinds up all the corn plant, the entire corn plant. And if you look in here, you can even see a few kernels of corn. There's a kernel of corn, and that puts it all in a pile, and then we pack it. And after it's all packed, then we spend the winter time mixing the hay, the silage, and at times we actually will end up adding a little bit of corn in for energy. And that'll just help blend that together to get a TMR, which is a total mixed ration. So think of all your best ingredients, your most yummy food, all mixed into one. And that's what we have right here. So you can kind of see we've got, you can pick out a little bit of hay there. You can see a little bit of the corn stalk, and there's even a kernel of corn there. And that's all mixed together. And if you really look hard in here, I bet we can find it. Yep, look at that. We have a potato. So we actually use some of the potatoes that any of you really like French fries. So a lot of times, all the potatoes are stored in big warehouses. And if they don't make it to the French fry line for your French fries, they'll end up being cattle food. So we use, when we talk about Earth Day, how we reduce, reuse, and repurpose, we're reusing or repurposing these potatoes that otherwise would just get thrown away. And the cattle love these.
All right, Miles, we have a question about the feed. They want, a student wants to know, how much does a cow eat and how much does a calf eat?
That's a really good question. So the cows right now with our TMR ration, they're eating about 55 pounds of feed. So think about that, 55 pounds of feed. So that's per day. And the calves, they're mostly eating milk. So they're getting all their nutrients from their mother's milk. So we want to feed the cow really healthy so that she produces good quality milk so that the calf can do really good.
So we have a couple questions, Miles, about like Dominic, for example, is wondering what is the lifespan of a cow? And then kind of related, another student wanted to know, Taylor is wondering how old is your oldest cow? Or actually, I'm sorry, that was Nora, would like to know how old is your oldest cow?
Okay, so that's really good. A cow's lifespan is about 10 to 15 years. So, but there are some cows that get older with better genetics. So we have one cow that is right at 18 years old. So that's getting up there in cow age. So that's a great question.
All right, Miles, we have a few more questions too about the other animals on your farm, particularly horses. So if you could take a few minutes and tell us how the horses are involved with the cattle, that would be fantastic.
That is a great question and a great transition because we actually have Bo here. And he's one of our main ranch horses. So as you can see, he's eating some alfalfa right now to kind of just have a snack while we look at him. And you'll kind of see some of the gear that's on him. So with our horses, we use them for checking on our cows, riding the pastures, and making sure everything's good. Like the cows are healthy, they got enough grass, they have enough water, and that's what we use our horses for. So you can kind of see there's some different hardware on him. And actually, I think we'll go around to the other side so we got a little better light. So he's got a halter on right now. We've got the saddle on and the blankets. So what the blankets do, they act just like a cushion for the saddle to sit on. So it makes Bo more comfortable for riding. And then we have what's called a breast collar, which helps hold the saddle on the front when we're roping. And then you have the flank strap and the cinch here. So, and then what I have here is a bridle. So if any of you are familiar with horses, you'll see a bridle and the bit, and then of course the reins. And I haven't put it on yet. It's just kind of like a fancy sports car. You got to put the steering wheel on before you drive. So if you were going to take Bo for a ride, we'd put his steering wheel on, but we don't need to go for a ride today in the rain yet. So we're just going to leave Bo here. So I'm sure there's some more questions.
Yeah, and we'll get to questions in just a moment, but we have a video of your daughter Mackenzie is she on Bo or one of your other horses?
So she's actually on Bo.
She's on Bo. Okay, cool. So Carrie's on top of it. So tell us, well, actually, do you want to tell us what we're going to see or should we just play this video?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and play the video, I'll talk through it a little bit.
Perfect.
Two ways that you can rope something, either by heading or heeling.
Miles, the audio is not working on that video, so can you tell them?
Okay. So what she's doing is she's getting ready to rope. So she's kind of built her rope. So she's got her loop in one hand and then her, what we call the slack or the coils in the other hand. So you also have to hold your coils and hold on your steering with the left hand, and then the right hand, if you're right-handed, you're going to follow your target. In this case, it's rowing. And what you're going to do is you're going to twirl that rope around, and then you're going to come in and sweep in, and then you're going to throw your loop down. And if you did it right, you'll have caught him. So that's kind of the short and sweet of it, but it takes, just like with anything, whether it's music, sports, it takes a lot of practice to do it right. So we spend a lot of time on the ranch practicing our roping skills, practicing our riding skills. Not only does that make us a better rider and a better ranch hand, but it also makes our horse better because they also need training too.
So Brian is wondering, first of all, how old is that horse? And then why would you want to rope and catch cattle like was demonstrated in the video?
That's a great question. So Bo is 17 now, so he's getting to be one of our best ranch horses. So he's right at his peak years. And then when roping is a good question because, you know, much like if you get anything, if you get injured or you get a owie or you get an infection, you might need to get treated. So if you need to get a shot, you go to the doctor. Well, basically when we're out in the pasture, we have to go to the cattle, and the cattle know we're trying to help them, but they don't want to quite get caught. So we have to catch them, give them a treatment, and that makes them feel better. In fact, that's a good segue because we actually have a calf that we had to catch that he had a broken leg. So last week we had the vet out and the vet put a cast on it. And Rowan named this guy, his name is Stilts. So you can see him now, he's about 12 days old. So he's getting with his cast is getting along really good. You can see that there. And that's going to heal up in another 3 weeks. We'll be able to pull that cast off and he'll be completely healed.
Wow. Okay. Well, Stilts, we wish him the best. We have a question that I feel like I have to answer this because the teacher said this is from a student who's celebrating his birthday today. So Bentley Kessler wants to know how many cow pastures you have.
Oh, very good question. First off, happy birthday, especially on Earth Day. And that's a really good question because we have 4 different groups and we rotate the pastures. So we typically will rotate through about 28 to 32 different pastures, depending on some fence setup. So we have some mobile fence that will actually set up to cross section a pasture if we need to do some more intensive grazing management.
So that can kind of lead us to our next topic, Miles, that you and Sarah wanted to talk about on your ranch, and that's how the animals are handled. So we have a picture of how you help move them through a particular area.
Yeah, so if you got that picture of the corral set up. Yep. So as you're looking at that corral, we actually utilize that for handling the cattle. So what we'll do is we'll bring them in through the bigger pen. We'll bring them out of the pasture, typically down the road or in through another pasture. And then we bring them into a smaller pasture. And then what we'll do is we'll bring them into the corral. And what we do is we funnel them around. And I'm not sure if any of you are aware, April is National Autism Awareness Month. And one of the most famous autistic people, who's also a very famous veterinary, is Temple Grandin. And she's designed a lot of cattle handling systems because she sees things differently than people. She kind of sees things through the eyes of a cow. So she's designed corral systems that have big S curves and small paddocks. And when they rotate back through, cattle like to return to where they come. So you naturally use the cow's natural instinct to design your handling facilities. The cattle handle much safer and much more calmly. So we've designed a lot of our systems after things that she's discovered.
So Miles, I'm going to move my arrow the way that the cows would come into the big part of the corral, and then they come this way, and then they go through this little section and come around this way, and then you get them into these 4 pens where you get to sort them out by cows or calves. Yep. And then you send them back out the same way they came in.
The same way they came in. Yep. So that works really well for our setup. And there's been a lot of ranchers that are redesigning their corral systems to handle them more efficiently.
And just for fun, I'm showing them a video of a bunch of your cows, just so they could see a larger amount. Cool.
And well, a couple things I wanted to throw in. Teachers, we do have a couple lesson plans that Miles mentioned. Temple Grandin, she has wrote a few books herself and has had books wrote about her. So those lesson plans use those books, as well as having students design corrals or places where cattle and other animals can live and be really comfortable and do the things that they need to do in a really awesome environment. So a few more things, a few more questions, Miles. There's been a couple questions on the cattle. Are they for milk or are they for meat? And also Kendrick wants to know if they drink milk since they produce milk. So could you talk to us a little bit about the difference between milk and meat cattle and what yours are for?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Ours, even though they do produce milk, they're a meat breed. So their main goal is to produce, grow big and produce as much meat as possible, but they do milk, and you can drink beef milk. It just doesn't have a lot of butter fat in it, like what a dairy breed would have. So you can't make cheese or ice cream or even butter very well with it. but they do a great job building a lot of sustainable protein in order to get that meat to your farm table.
All right, Miles, here's a question from Abby. She would like to know if cows can have twins or triplets.
They can. In fact, we've had 3 sets of twins this year, and it's been really fun. Twins are always a challenge because cows, unlike sheep or pigs, are used to having only one baby. So when you get multiple babies, sometimes it's a little harder on the cow. So, but triplets are really rare. We've never had a set of triplets, but we've had neighbors that have had triplets.
Okay, so now here's a couple questions about the food. So Mitchell is wondering, and also another student asked the same question, how much silage do you produce each year? And then also they're wondering if the horses eat the same food that you feed the cattle.
Well, that's great questions. And we produce about 1,000 tons of silage a year. So that covers about 40 acres. This year, due to the drought, though, it was a little less. It was about 800 tons of silage. So, and then we pack that in a pile, and then we store it for all winter. We cover it with a big tarp, and that saves it. So, and then horses and cattle are different stomachs. So a horse has a single stomach, kind of like we do, and a cattle is a ruminant. So that actually has 4 compartments inside their stomach. So they digest things a little different. So although horses can eat hay really well, they don't do really good on things like silage and that, because it typically produces a little bit of gas, which cattle, you'll see they'll belch up and they regurgitate to chew their cud, whereas a horse doesn't do that.
All right, excellent. Carrie Carlson is a big fan of the Kuschels and your ranch, and she's wondering how many cows and calves you will have once your herd is done calving.
I cut out there, sorry about that.
So how many cows and calves total will you have once your herd is done calving?
Well, the goal is for every cow to have a calf. So we would double our herd when all the calves are on the ground.
So how many would that be?
Oh, that'd be right about 1,000. So when you count cows and calves.
That is a lot to take care of. You guys do awesome work. Okay, so several students in, I think it's Mr. Polson's class, want to know how fast your horse can run.
Well, we've clocked him right at about 32 miles an hour. So that's running really fast. And we don't typically go that fast, but he was in a racing mood that day and we were right alongside the road. So we did a little run challenge.
Well, that, I don't know, that would maybe make me scared if I was riding on the back of a horse going over 30 miles an hour, but I bet it would be fun too. Well, we are getting close to the end of our time here, Miles, but I have one final question I want to ask you, and this is from Susie. She wants to know, what is your favorite part about ranching and farming?
My favorite part is really being outdoors, especially with the animals. So as you can see, it's indoors because of the rain and the weather, but normally you'd find me outside riding horse and tending to the cattle.
All right, Miles, well, you have been the best host, and we did get to see Mackenzie and Rowan in that video of roping, but I think we have a family picture. I just want to show that here to end. My colleague Carrie is going to get up here in a moment, but you can see the Kuschel family from Rocking K Ranch. We had Miles, who was our host today and did a great job answering all those questions. And then Sarah, his wife, is the camera person, so we didn't get to see her very much, but they have 3 kids. Miles, do you want to tell us about your children and how old they are?
Yeah, so Mackenzie, our oldest, she's in the middle there. So she's 17. And then our next is Kelsey, and she is 14, going to be 15 here at the in the middle of May. And then our youngest, Rowan, there is 11. So
excellent. Well, we know that they are all involved on the ranch, and what an awesome awesome place to grow up and be part of a a family that's raising cattle and get to work with horses and all sorts of other things. So you guys, our time has gone by so fast, but I want to thank all of the classes and teachers and students for joining us. Your questions were amazing, and I'm sorry I didn't get to answer or ask all of them, but they were all great questions. And teachers, please know that we have our ag mags, which I mentioned earlier, 2 issues for each grade level. We have lots of lesson plans that can be used in your classroom. And Sarah, who's our camera woman today, she is on our Ag in the Classroom staff as a regional curriculum specialist in the Nimrod, Sabika area. So if you're curious and want some assistance, we like to think of our staff members as your personal guides to integrating agriculture into your classroom. So Sarah, give us a little wave. Or is your mic, is your headset, can you speak to us? No. Okay. Well, anyway.
I can now.
All right. Well, do you want to say anything, Sarah?
Yeah, just thanks for joining us today, and a special shout out to Mrs. Carlson and her first graders. They actually come to our ranch every year for their field trip, so we're excited for that in May and hope the weather is a whole lot nicer than it is today. But for any of you educators, if there's anything I can do to help you bring these resources into your classrooms, please reach out to me, because right along with raising these cattle, my next favorite thing is to go share their story with everyone else.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And one more quick Minnesota Ag in the Classroom program that you might want to take advantage of is our farm camp. And this is a 3-day immersive experience where we assist in doing some pre-learning, but then we have students and their teachers and whoever do a field trip, and it could be virtual or it could be in person. Maybe you want to go to Rocking K Ranch. We could help organize that and coordinate that. And then the final piece is a career exploration lessons and learning on the 3rd day. So if you're curious, reach out to our Minnesota Ag in the Classroom team. We would love to help you however we can in getting excitement built about agriculture. So thank you again, Kuschel family. Thank you again, teachers and students, for joining us. Have a fantastic Earth Day. Bye, everyone.